Hey, what's going on? Sorry I'm late. This may I'm hoping this will work. I am without Wi-Fi at my home today, so I'm going off of my phone, tethering data off my phone. So I'm really hoping this will actually work out well. I don't know for sure. If it does stumble, if it does get unwatchable, then we will certainly reschedule this. But this is Mike versus. My name is Mike McFarland. Thank you for tuning in. It is Thursday, July 6th. It's a short week for everyone. Everyone. Well, primarily North Americans. We had Canada Day on July 1st, which we got off on Monday. And then my American friends had July 4th on Tuesday. So a lot going on this week in a very short period of time. But we are here. We are here to talk about AI. Normally, we talk about marketing automation. It's about showcasing Eloqua versus Marketo versus HubSpot versus Pardot. We're not really going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about more about AI and talk about more about it in terms of how us marketing ops, rev ops, us operations professionals can use tools like Chat GPT, tools like Accio, and I'm going to throw in some Zapier on this too, or Zapier, however you want to say it, in terms of using Chat GPT to automate some of the things that you do. Really cool. Really, I've been nerding out over this stuff a lot lately. Um, More so because it's been a really effective tool for me being kind of not solo. I work with my wife Kim, but being a one person shop when it comes to delivering stuff for my customers, having the right tools is really important because it can make your job that much more efficient and can potentially allow you to do things that you didn't know how you could do before, because now you've got this really cool tool that can help you do it in something like Chat GPT or something in like Accio. um, this is not a sponsored video by any stretch. I don't have any affiliation with the tools that I'm using. These are tools that I've learned about. These are tools that I use, and maybe they are. Maybe you use them differently, but these are the ways that I will be using them, or that I have used them, and then I'll obviously be sharing with everyone how you can use them as well. One of the other reasons I wanted to do this was because obviously there's a lot of chat that's been going on in the industry, or in the, I'll say in the B2B SaaS, because that's the world that I kind of work in and live in. A lot of a lot of talking about AI, but no one's really showing you anything. They're just saying use AI to drive a better customer experience. Use AI to do better lead scoring. Use AI to do better analysis. Sure, how? And that's for me a really important piece here. Is a lot of people can say things, but maybe they don't know how to do it yet. And that's cool. Like, everyone's learning at different speeds or trying at different speeds. But for me, it was really important to maybe start to answer that how, and showcase just a few cool ways that I've used AI as part of my role here at 3MG. So, with that being said, I'm just going to do a quick gut check on LinkedIn just to make sure, because there's a LinkedIn Live. That's where we are right now. Want to make sure that this is actually working and seeing if there's any comments. Everything, oh man, it is very slow. So I'm really hoping this is working. Let me just do a quick check here. I don't want that to, don't need any noise, no comments. Okay. Okay, perfect. Well, let's jump in. So I'm going to start with Chat GPT. Let me get my screen shared here. And for those of you who don't know what Chat GPT is, basically think about it as a way to talk to a machine that can answer questions for you. So if you're used to using tools like Google or or Bing or Yahoo or Alta Vista back in the day, we remember Alta Vista. It's very similar to using a search engine, but it's so much more powerful than that. I have friends that use ChatGPT to help come up with stories for their kids at night, which is such a cool use case. So instead of like obviously go out and buy books, support local authors and all of that good stuff. But if your kids wanted to read a story about a princess who goes on a quest to save a prince and it's on the moon and there's spaceships and dragons and fireflies, chat gpt can probably write you a pretty cool story about that. Anyway, so what I've been using chat gpt a lot for recently is data manipulation and data augmentation. Um, and I find it really you kind of have to prompt it certain ways to kind of get what you're actually looking for, but that's part of the learning process and that's part of the fun of doing all this stuff. So for example, I wanted to talk about maybe like cleaning up a list of country values. So for example, I can ask ChatGPT, can you create a list of countries with different abbreviations or full spellings? We'll take a look here. Oh, it's actually just going to give me everything with the abbreviation. I was hoping to get a list of dirty countries that we could go through and we could fix. Um, let's see. Can you make some of the values incorrect? See if it does anything there. It doesn't. It's a little bit of a mix. Okay, so we got some incorrect abbreviations. We've got some longer abbreviations. The we've also got the full spelling of these countries as well. Now I could say provide a list of countries with their two-letter abbreviation in a table format. So now I can start to use ChatGPT to develop potentially what I would say is like a lookup table. So if you're using a tool like Eloqua, if you're using a tool like Marketo, if you're using a tool like HubSpot, if you're using a tool like Pardot, and you want to start to normalize some of this data, this was something that you had to usually put together manually before. And as you can see here, I'm getting this generated here within just a few seconds. And I'm getting it in a format that I can use. I can copy this out and then I can go and potentially use this in my marketing automation platform. Now, I'm going to show you a way to use this with Zapier and ChatGPT to help automate it, which I think is pretty cool and a fairly cheap way to use these tools. Right now, I'm using the free version of ChatGPT. I do have the plus version where I can get at the more advanced model that it has available. But I want to use the free version because I think that's what most people use. So here's just, again, a quick way to kind of showcase, here's how you can go and get a list of countries and their two-letter abbreviation so that if you were looking to clean things up, you could go about and do that in your marketing automation platform. One of the other ones I find really helpful is title. And so title can obviously be disseminated down into a role or down into a level as well. So normally what I would do is if I was working with a customer, there's no PII information going into this whatsoever. I would never, ever, 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 ever do that. Is if I was working with a customer who wanted to normalize their titles, I could take a sample of those titles without any other information, just those titles, and ask ChatGPT to bucket them into levels and roles. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to have ChatGPT construct the titles for me, and then I will go and break it down into levels and roles so you can see what that looks like here as well. So I'm going to go, hey, ChatGPT, can you provide a list of the 50 most common B2B SaaS titles? Here we go. So now we've got a list of all of these different titles, and there's 50 of them. I'm going to say, can you add 50 more? Certainly. This is also really cool. If you're looking to understand where people are from a title perspective in a certain industry, I'm sure you could ask ChatGPT. Of course, there's going to be nuances to this. Depending on the industry that you're in, you might have titles that aren't potentially as, I don't want to say popular, but maybe not as mainstream as like B2B SaaS. That is, again, the world that I typically live in. But now you can see here, I've got a list of 100 titles. And now what I want ChatGPT to do is go through those titles and break them down into levels. Can you break all the titles down into levels? So now it's taking those titles and it's breaking them down into job levels, which again, depending on the use case, I could take this information and push it back into my marketing automation platform so that if I wanted to normalize someone's job title into a bucket, I could do that. I'm actually going to show you an example. I alluded to this earlier of how to do this specifically with Zapier and HubSpot and ChatGPT, and I'll walk you through kind of how that looks. But for the purposes of this, now I've got these lists of titles. I've got them down into buckets, which is quite handy to have. Again, if you were using this as a segmentation exercise to kind of better understand, instead of looking at every single title, breaking it down to levels, you can go and do that. Now, I'm going to break that down into job role now. Can you break that down into job role? And let's see what it does. So now it breaks it down into roles for me, which again, hugely helpful. We know that title data is always going to be a little bit unique because of the nature of how it's captured. Typically going to be captured through a web form, potentially through an enrichment service. And that's great. We want to see someone's actual title. But from a marketing perspective, sometimes you want to do some sort of segmentation to say, I want to talk to C-levels, or I want to talk to people in marketing. I want to talk to people in sales. This is a really great way to help look at those titles that you have in your database and do some of that automated heavy lifting for you so that you can break it down into a level or break it down into a role as well. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And this is one thing I've used ChatGPT for quite a bit. Because normally I would have to go through every title manually because I don't have any other tools. I'm using a tool like ChatGPT here to go and help break some of this down for me. Now, I can also train ChatGPT a little bit, and I say train with asterisks because it's not, maybe not the right word because I know it can mean a lot when it comes to AI. But I can also ask it to put it in buckets that I specifically want them to be in. So if I come up with different buckets of ways I want to normalize title into a role or into a level or into a buyer persona, for example, I can provide those. These are basically the buckets I want them in, and then have ChatGPT look at those titles and put them into those buckets as for me instead of it coming up with its own buckets here. So that's where you can get really creative with this. It doesn't just have to be the way that ChatGPT spits something out. If I wanted to come back and say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to look at this title and put it into a bucket of senior manager, middle manager, or manager and see what happens, it can do that for you. Now, is it going to be 100% accurate all the time? Maybe not, depending on the title, but it's going to be more accurate than not, at least in my experience. So definitely worth trying out. Definitely a lot of fun to play around and see what you can do here. One of the other things I've used this for is writing Salesforce code for formulas. And I can write formulas in Salesforce pretty fluently now. I feel pretty confident with it. But if there's a tool that can help me do it and I can provide some context to it as well, I can go through and do that here as well. So I'll start maybe another chat here around building, let's say, a validation rule for a field in Salesforce. So I want to have, I think this happens automatically already, but for email address, I want to make sure email address contains an @ symbol when someone is creating a lead, for example. So I can say, write a Salesforce formula that validates the email address of a lead contains an @ Very, very, very straightforward formula, very easy. But instead of going on Stack Overflow, instead of searching through Trailhead forums, or even potentially just trying to figure out the documentation yourself, this is a really, really cool way to help automate some of that. Is this going to replace people who write this stuff every day? Absolutely not. You have to understand context. And I think I mentioned that on the last episode of the Indie Marketers podcast. Another plug for another piece of content that I put out on a fairly regular basis. But you do need context. You do need to understand how to apply this. You do need to understand the different nuances that can potentially come with it. But again, something really cool that you can do is use this to help write some formulas for you in Salesforce, which has been really powerful for me because sometimes the formulas that I end up having to write are really complex and have different objects that it needs to look at and different ands and ors and is blank and is pick lists and all that fun stuff. It can get a little bit hairy sometimes. So I use ChatGPT to help do that. And then obviously I test. Is it going to work? We need to make sure that that all happens as well. So that's kind of ChatGPT at a very high level, a few different use cases. We talked a little bit about industry values. We talked a little bit about normalizing title. We talked a little bit about building formulas. Hell, if you want to go through and see, can you create uh, a basic HTML email for me that I can edit in Pardot? It can generate this for you with the CSS. And again, you would have to copy and paste this HTML code into Pardot that I referenced here, and you would have to go in and still make adjustments to it, but you don't have to start from scratch. You can start with the baseline and then use that baseline to build your email further. Now, one of the things that I haven't really, I kind of showed it with the title stuff where you can continue the conversation. I could do the same thing here with an email, for example, and say, I want my button to have a color. I want the button to have a color of red. So now what it will do is it'll go in and it'll change the button color. It should change the button color to red. Um, let's see, background color, red. Perfect. Versus before, it was no background color, just, oh wait, sorry, it was a different color, but it was a hex color. Anyway, you can ask it to do more off of the same thing that you've already asked it to create, which is really cool. So I've done this quite a bit, especially with some really heavy data manipulation I've had to do. Um, where I'll ask it to do something, it does it, but then there's different scenarios I didn't accommodate for. So I just keep prompting it to now look at this, now remove this, now change the order of this. So it's kind of fun because you're telling this thing what to do and it's not fighting back. It's like, certainly I'd gladly do that for you. Pretty fun. But again, another use case. I could sit here and just talk about use cases all day with ChatGPT. I'm sure the folks that are watching have some pretty cool use cases as well. So if you do have some use cases, I'm just going to pop over to LinkedIn here for a second and see if anybody has any comments on anything. Let's take a peek. See, I don't think so. Oh, there we go. I can see you. This is working. Oh, and don't need to hear me go live. Um, awesome. People can see, and this is great. So, ChatGPT, really cool, really powerful tool. Give it a try. Try some random things. You never know if it's, you don't know what you don't know until you try. And that's the fun thing with ChatGPT is that sometimes you surprise yourself with how far it can actually do some of these little tasks here for you. Now, the next thing I want to talk a little bit about is Accio. Accio is a tool that I was introduced to a few years ago in regards to doing some predictive analysis, specifically around potentially lead scoring or deal acceleration or deal identification as well. And it's a really, really, really cool tool, and it's just continuously gotten better since I've used it. I actually want to showcase a little bit of how you can use a tool like Accio to do some basic analysis around deals, around opportunities. And so I'm going to, before we jump into Accio and walk through that, I'm going to start in ChatGPT to create the file that I want to use to do this. So I'm going to create a new chat and I'm going to ask ChatGPT, can you please create? I don't know why I say can you please? It's like it's gonna say yes or no anyway. Can you please create a file or a table for me that contains opportunity name, opportunity amount, opportunity stage, let's see, contact title, company industry, and let's say company size. So here we go. So I've got 5 opportunities. I actually want quite a bit more. So I'm going to say, can you create 100 instead? So it's going through. It's going to create all of these opportunities for me. And really, what I'm using this data to do is I'm going to load this into Accio, and basically I'm going to ask Accio to look at all the opportunity. Oh, continue generating. Um, I'm going to ask Accio. Oh no. Oh, here's a CSV file. Perfect. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chat GPT. I'm going to ask Accio to go through and look at the closed won opportunities that have happened and find what are the different elements within those closed won opportunities that increase the probability of having a closed won opportunity. I don't know why it stopped generating. I wanted to keep going. There we go. Unfortunately, oh no, data is not feasible in this text-based format. Okay, well, we'll use 34. That's fine. Thank you, ChatGPT. Yeah, like I was saying, we're going to use this data to load into Accio, and Accio is going to go and do a predictive analysis to say the likelihood of deals that go to close one typically have these elements tied to it, and these are the one, and within these elements are fields. These are the values that typically lift the opportunity to a better possibility of being a closed one deal based off of the information that we have. So I'm going to just create a quick spreadsheet here. Just give me one moment. We're going to go into our handy Excel. Close that. And let's see, paste it in, copy, paste, and we're going to go text the column. Isn't it fun watching someone do work? I guess it's no different than if you were doing a live Zoom meeting or something like that. But we're going to go like this. We're going to clean that up. And as you can see here, now I've got this file of 34 opportunities that all have an opportunity name, an opportunity amount, although this all seemed to shift. So let's just move this over. An opportunity stage, a contact title. So typically, if you have an opportunity and you have contact roles tied to it, I want to see what are some of the titles that are tied to those. Company industry and company size. And we're going to go through now, and I'm going to save this file. And we're going to go, let's say, we'll call it book 1. Okay. I'm going to pop over into Accio, and I'm going to load my data in. And so I've added all my data in, and each column can basically have a different, I'll say a different category, but you can use a word as category to basically determine how you want Accio to read the data. So if I have a numeric field here, for example, I can say that this is a number or a number integer, for example. So that would be the opportunity amount. The opportunity name, I don't really care about it predicting anything there. So I'm going to actually disable it from being a part of the prediction analysis. And I can also do that when I run the prediction as well. But I've got opportunity amount, opportunity stage as a category. Perfect. We've got contact title as a category. Great. We've got company industry in here as well as a category. Great. And company size in here as a category is great as well. I'm going to go, and the next step, this is really cool. This is basically sitting Chat GPT on top of your data here. So I could go through and ask Accio to answer some basic questions like, what is the average opportunity amount? It's going to look at the data that I put in, and it will tell me that the average opportunity amount is at $105.74. Pretty cool. Now I can say for closed won deals only. See what it says? $182.50. Cool. This is a cool way to ask questions about your data before you even actually do any of the prediction, which is what I'm going to do. So really cool opportunity just to take your data, throw it into Accio, ask it some basic questions so you can get some basic answers, because I'm sure you're getting questions from people in your organization who will say, like, what are the top 3 industries I can't spell with opportunities. I can't spell opportunities either, but again, it's going off the data that we provide here. So the top 3 industries with the most opportunities are finance, healthcare, and manufacturing. Done. Easy. Now we're looking at 35 records here. I'm sure there are some ways to do this very quickly in tools like Sheets or Excel, or even just looking at your CRM as well. But the idea that you can use chat, or not chat GPT, I think it's chat GPT that sits underneath Accio, or maybe just Accio having their own machine language that does all this, is a really cool way just to kind of answer some basic questions about your data as well. Now we're going to go on to the show. We want to predict some categories and numerical outcomes here. So again, we've loaded our file in. We have 34 opportunities that we want to basically explore here. And what I want to be able to predict is opportunity stage. And so what it's going to do is it's going to go through and run a predictive model against all the data, so that for each opportunity stage, I can get an idea of kind of what do these opportunities look like. So for this example, I'm going to use opportunity stage. There's nothing I need to ignore because I've already disabled them when I prepared the file. And from a training mode perspective, I would normally use higher quality. It does take a little bit longer. It's about 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm just going to use the fastest here. It doesn't necessarily mean that the results are any worse. It's just you're giving Accio a little bit more time to go through and process stuff, which can potentially make the results a little bit different. So we're going to go fastest. We're going to create our predictive model. We're going to take a few seconds here to go through and let Accio do its magic behind the scenes. I've used this, I kind of explained this at the onset, but I've used Accio when it really to help me build lead scoring models. That's been the biggest help for me. So when you think about especially the demographic information or the firmographic information that you're scoring, typically what I've done is, well, let's look at opportunities that we've closed one over the last few years. Let's look at the people who have been a part of those opportunities from a contact role perspective. And let's find the similarities in the deals that have won against the deals that we currently have in our pipeline right now. So that if we have deals in the pipeline right now that we could potentially accelerate, or if we see people with certain pieces of information engage with our content, be it through email, be it through search, be it through social, maybe there's an opportunity to leverage some of that here. So you can see here, we've finished off our prediction. Our outcome of interest, we're looking at opportunity stage, but instead of looking at proposal, I actually want to look at closed won. And so now I can start to see, well, here are the top fields in terms of level of importance that Accio has identified in scenarios that have become closed won. Company industry, we could see the likelihood of closed won when its finance is increased by almost 30%, where it's decreased for the other ones. Interesting. Does that mean that we shouldn't sell to them? Not necessarily. It's just, again, it's based on the data, and the data set that we use is pretty basic. So I'm not too surprised that it's not a little bit more evenly spread out, or not evenly, but it's not a little bit more spread out, but that's okay. Opportunity amount probably should have ignored that. Let's ignore that. We don't need opportunity amount to do the analysis here. So let's just rerun our model. So we're really looking at contact title, company industry, and company size as kind of the three main fields. And now it's going to be about looking within those fields and finding what are the strengths and the values that we have that help predict that a deal could potentially go to closed one as well. So we're going to let that finish up here. But like I was saying, I've been doing a lot of this work with lead scoring. It's really helpful. It doesn't replace the gut feel or the gut knowledge that you know when it comes to lead scoring. You know your business better than a tool does. The tool just has data, and it's using that data to help better understand that prediction probability. But you also know, based on your business, what industries you work best in, what company sizes you work best in, the people that you should typically sell to from a persona perspective. You want to still use that information when you're building your scoring model, but this can help give you a little bit more context, just around what are the different segments, or what are the different groupings of data that we should look at. So we look at job title, for example. Interesting. I love my BDR friends, depending on what we're selling here. I don't know what we're selling, but BDR or BDM, business development manager, is the top title when it comes to title evaluations, where the other ones kind of fall a little bit short in terms of the direct impact that it has. Now, I can say here the impact on likelihood of closed one. What are the values here that have that positive impact? I can also change this and say, what are some of the ones that have the highest factor, or lowest factor, or negative impact. We can all see them here as well, but we can go through and we can sort some of that information out, and also change the visualization on it. But what I would use this for is, if I was looking at building a lead scoring program or a lead scoring model, and I wanted to look for people that had certain titles, this would be a really good way to figure out, well, what are those titles? And then how should I weight them based on the level of importance that they are when it comes to predicting a closed one deal. So if you think about giving someone 10 points versus 20 points versus 30 points, in this scenario here, I would say, if you have a title of business development manager, I'm going to give you the most amount of points, because that one has the best correlation to the likelihood of a closed one deal, versus a sales rep. Maybe it's only 10 points, for example. Again, you play around with this a little bit, but you've got some of the having something kind of validate what actually has a positive impact against your closed one opportunities is really cool. Company size, I always find this one really interesting, especially when this is numeric. So you can kind of get like those different company ranges that figure out like where you should be kind of selling into. Really cool way to do that as well. Again, this is the data that we're throwing at here was generated by ChatGPT. I would hopefully have a lot more data to work with here, instead of using just this fake file. But it's a good use case to kind of showcase what is possible with Accio. The other thing I really like about Accio here is that it can kind of break down some segments here for you. So the likelihood to close win is 8.5 times higher with this segment. So if your company industry is finance, your contact title is business development manager, and your company size is small, this is really kind of who we would want to be selling to. Uncertain, so there's not necessarily a positive or negative correlation to going close one on this. Here's what that segment looks like. And then for unlikely to close, this is the scenario that I would look at here as well. So you can do some really cool things with getting some good baseline information around how I could be scoring someone. Again, the more you throw at it, the better the analysis is going to be. Also, using a tool like Chat GPT to help normalize some of the data before you throw it in can be very helpful. But I've also seen scenarios where Accio has been able to, it doesn't change the data or normalize it, but it creates categories for me, which is really cool. So if I wanted to look at title, and I could even ask it to do it here, can you put my titles into categories? See what it says. Can you job title? Let's see. It's contact title. it can do some of that categorization here for you as well. Now, which makes life a little bit easier when you're scoring, especially on something like title, which is so unique. Having categories also becomes really helpful to do that as well. So you could say, if you have a certain title, set your category to this, and then have that category be scored a certain way so that you've got that normalized version that you can do, which I'm actually going to show you how to do with ChatGPT, Zapier, and HubSpot right now. But I'm going to take a quick water break. So just give me one moment, because I have been talking for a little bit. And we are just going to do a quick LinkedIn check here as well. I wish I use this, and maybe folks, if you are watching, I'm using Restream as my tool here. I don't get a lot of metrics out of it, maybe because I'm on the free version. But so if you see me jumping back and forth between this and LinkedIn, or see me kind of jumping around, it's really just about me wanting to make sure that I'm getting questions from folks answered, if there are any questions, which it doesn't look like there is right now, which is cool. Okay, let's jump into Zapier, HubSpot, and ChatGPT. So this was something I think I saw. I think I saw someone mention this on LinkedIn once, where they were using ChatGPT directly within HubSpot. And I don't know if it was an app, maybe there might be an app for HubSpot, but I'm going to be using Zapier here to basically do some title normalization on the fly, which is really cool. Really, really, really cool. Okay, so I'm going to start off by jumping into Zapier here. I've already tested this. I've already built it. So that's why you're seeing it all set up here. But I'll show you kind of what it looks like here against the test record in my own instance of HubSpot in a moment. So I've built a Zap that is basically HubSpot and ChatGPT. Those are the kind of two starting and endpoints here. So in HubSpot, what I've asked for is I want to make sure that I'm getting the job title has changed. So if this field has changed, I don't need to retrieve that, but I want to basically look for contacts in HubSpot when their job title value changes. When that changes, I throw it against ChatGPT. Now, when you throw it against ChatGPT, the first thing you do is you can ask it a question. So in this case here, I'm saying, can you normalize this title into senior manager, middle management, or individual contributor? Only return the title, because sometimes it'll give you an explanation, but I just want the title. And then I merge my job title into the question so that it can take a look at it. Then I can ask it to return that information back to HubSpot, or updating that existing content based on the contact ID. And I want to showcase here the title based on the contact that I'm looking at. So if I want to go through here, let me just get this turned off. And I'm going to edit the Zap. And I'm going to go through the steps here to show you kind of what it looks like. So new contact on property change. I've got my HubSpot account here. I've got the field that I got the job title field that's going to be retrieved when I'm doing this, which is all good. And then I'm going to go down to tests, and I'm going to find my test record right here. Let's see, do I have a job title? Co-president. Oh, that's so nice. So I have my job title here of co-president. We're going to go on with my current record here. So we're going to continue to ChatGPT. Like I said, we're asking the question here, normalize this title into senior management, middle management, or individual contributor, only return the normalized title. So I can see here, I've got my normalized title, or my title of co-president that I'm going to be asking it to normalize. I'm going to retest this action. And I can see here that here's the question that was sent, and that here's the title that was provided. and it has normalized it down into senior manager for me. I can then take that information, run an update contact step here in HubSpot. Based on my contact ID, I'm going to rerun this test here, or refresh fields. I'll show you the mapping that I ended up doing. I went to my field that I've created in HubSpot called normalized job title, and I'm mapping the response back from ChatGPT to this field of senior management. Continue. So now I can run this against my contact record here in HubSpot. And let me refresh my screen here, share this, and I can see that senior management has been returned back to my normalized job title field, whereas my job title is co-president. Now I can showcase that this actually works. So I'm going to say that I'm a marketing operations manager, and I'm actually going to turn this on so we can see it in action. I'm going to remove my normalized job title. Click save. Do a quick little refresh. It should take a few seconds here. Boom! Middle management, marketing operations manager. All I'm using here is Zapier and ChatGPT and HubSpot. And I've got a job title normalization automation that is now running whenever job title gets updated in HubSpot. Now, the question I haven't answered for myself just yet is this a cost-effective way of doing this sort of work? I know I've built these things manually in the past. That's why I get excited when I see I can do it with automation and with AI to do it. In order for me to do what I just did, I'm on a paid plan of Zapier. And I also pay, I think it's for access to the OpenAI API, it's $5 a month. And you get so many API calls on it. So what I don't know, because I'm not doing this at scale, I'm not doing this in a production environment. I'm not doing this. I don't have any clients doing this right now, nor have I recommended any clients to do it. What I don't know is this a cost-effective way of doing this sort of work. Is it cool? Fucking right, it's cool. It's really, really cool. But I don't know how much data could get processed, and I don't know what the cost could look like on that. So that's something I'm going to do a little bit of investigation on to try to figure out, like, is this a really cool way to kind of democratize some of this stuff that you would normally pay enrichment services for? And I'm not saying don't use enrichment services. They have so much more value than what I just did here. But if there's an opportunity to help do some data normalization and data standardization in my marketing automation platform using ChatGPT and connecting that through Zapier. Now, obviously, you need to make sure that your map is part of Zapier, which obviously HubSpot is, Marketo is, I feel like Pardot is. I don't know if Eloqua is, but I'm sure that there are ways that you could do that with coding, which I'm not a coder or developer. But with HubSpot, at least, it's really easy to do. And again, if this thing scales, it can do a lot of really cool stuff for you instead of you having to set up multiple lists in HubSpot to say this title contained this. Why not have ChatGPT do a little bit of that heavy lifting here for you? So I say all of this. Let me stop sharing because we can get back to this. We can get back to chatting here. I say all of this. This is all really cool stuff. I'm really excited about this sort of stuff. Hopefully you can kind of see that in the enthusiasm that I have when I talk about it, because I don't know necessarily what's possible yet. I do know what's possible from what I've experienced with it. And I hope you seeing things firsthand has been helpful rather than just reading about you should be doing this. Here's how to do some of this. Go and explore this stuff. Go and play around with this stuff. I don't know what the future holds with this sort of thing. I'm sure a lot of different platforms will start to emerge. I'm sure tools like HubSpot and Eloqua and Marketo and Pardot and Salesforce are going to have elements of AI throughout their apps in the coming future too. But for a person who works from home, who works by themselves, that if these tools can help make my life, not my life, my work more efficient, that's a huge win. Not just for me, but hopefully for my clients as well, because it allows me to spend more time on the more strategic stuff sometimes. But this sort of stuff is really cool to play around with. Definitely give it a try. Would love if you are watching, if you leave a comment around some of the things that you want to try, maybe, or leave a comment around what you've tried already, or dispel some of the stuff that I've done. I don't know. This is still all super new, but it's really cool. It's really fun to try and play around with. And yeah, that's it. That's Mike Versus for this week. We talked a little bit about marketing automation. We showcased it here with HubSpot. But I thought it would be really cool to kind of talk a little bit about AI and how perspective you can use some of these tools to make your job that much more efficient. So hopefully you got some value out of it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. I will be back, not next week, but maybe not the week after. I'll be back at some point to jump back on the marketing automation train. I was planning on talking about email editors this week, but did kind of a pivot. But we'll talk about email editors maybe in a few weeks here as we do this all again. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. If you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, let me know, Mike at mikemcfarland.ca. You can also check out 3mg.ca. You can follow us on Instagram, where I post some stuff about the Macho Man, Mike McFarland, at 3mg.ca. And we have a lot of fun over there too. So thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. See ya.